everyone. Welcome to Achaibo Clinical's Facebook group and our Clinical Trials Facts Wednesdays. So the purpose of this talk is to give you some insight into this industry that is just an incredible, innovative, and really a global industry that can completely transform lives. I mean, we're talking about at the basic level, the lives of patients, bringing products to the market that really transform people's lives. But then also the lives of the clinical research sites that are conducting the trials. That's what we're going to be talking about today. The lives of the R&D personnel who are working on the clinical trials and all the different vendors. So it's such a wonderful space for collaboration because there's so many moving parts. And if you watched the video from last week, I hope you enjoyed that. Before proceeding, welcome to the group. If you just joined us, the goal here is to inspire, uplift, and to share great ideas. Now, I am Tengu Muna, if you haven't met me before, and I am a global clinical trials consultant. Enjoy it, love it. But also, I have been studying the Yoga Sutras for years and success ideas, and that's what has really fueled my passion and the success I've experienced in this industry. Really happy about that. And so our talk for today is I want to talk about a clinical research site. And a lot of these talks are based on questions that I get on LinkedIn, on Insta, and all these different places. And I'm just breaking things down at the basic. If you don't know the industry, you don't understand what it's about. So one of the most important player, I would say, in this industry is the clinical research site. They are the ones who conduct the clinical trials. They are the ones who have the patients. And this could be in any setting. It could be at a hospital. It could be in a clinic. It could be an organization called an SMO, a site management organization that has contracted various medical doctors, to ensure that, patients, there's safety over the patients, there's oversight, and then they actually conduct it at their facility, right? And a clinical research site can be owned again by, like I said, a hospital, a clinic can be owned by an entrepreneur, by an individual. But the main takeaway is that no matter what the setting is, the clinical research site has to adhere to ICH GCPs, the good clinical practices that govern this industry, because we are dealing with human beings here. And as we all know, there has been a history when it comes to the way that patients are treated in clinical trials, whether it's conducting trials in the dark that nobody really knows about. So the clinical research site has to be set up in such a way that that adheres to the safety of the patient. So the clinical research site gets the clinical trial protocol along with, all the different processes that are needed. They have to make sure that, their institutional review board or independent ethics committee is actually approved. These are details that we cover in my coaching program, but this is just an oversight. They have to be approved. And then we have to make sure that there's qualified personnel. So if it is a clinical trial that is, maybe it's an ophthalmology project that is looking at patients with glaucoma, we wouldn't have, a dentist in this, being the principal investigator over this clinical trial. I mean, it could happen, but that shouldn't be. Right. I mean, it really should not be, because we have to make sure that the principal investigator is someone who's qualified. And we look at his CV, his license, is someone who is qualified in that therapeutic area and who can provide medical information that will ensure that patients are safe. So that's one thing at the clinical research site. The other role is a sub-investigator. Typically, we'll call it the principal investigator's assistant, right? So it could be that if the investigator is not available, then we have subs who are also medically qualified to do what the principal investigator is doing. Then one of the key roles is the clinical research coordinator. And this is the one who actually conducts the procedures at a clinical trial. They're like the study manager. And ideally, there's someone who is medically qualified because they do administer procedures. They do see the patients. In some cases, they do not, but majority of the cases, they do see patients. They administer, all the procedures that the clinical trial protocol demands. Now, At the clinical research site, the principal investigator cannot delegate his responsibility. He's always ultimately responsible. He only delegates tasks and duties. So we can have a clinical research coordinator, and this is one of the most common role because every clinical research site needs someone. Most principal investigators are medically qualified. They typically will be in the hospital, they'll be in the clinic, and then they might have a clinical research project that they're working on, and it's really impossible for them to do everything. But there are some cases, and I know in some countries where the principal investigator actually conducts the trial, and he's the clinical research coordinator. You might have somebody who's a quality control person at a clinical research site, right? They're doing quality assurance and quality control, making sure that everything is going according to plan. Documents are being reviewed, documents are being administered when they're supposed to be administered. The procedures of the clinical trial are going as planned. You might have a laboratory person, and that person is responsible for collecting samples, right, from patients, drawing blood and things like that. But it always is based on whatever clinical trial that is actually being conducted. And so the facility that is being used should have the personnel, it should have the equipment, right? So personnel, the equipment, right? And then to ensure that the trial is being conducted. For example, the investigational product has to be stored. It has to be a secured location. If you have a clinical research site and investigational drug is just hanging out somewhere, maybe in your lunchroom, that is a problem, right? So if you are listening to this and you're an investigator and you're a medical doctor who would love to explore this, or you're someone who wants to work at a clinical research site, you just want to pay attention to that. You have to understand what governs this industry and what the expectation is. It is a highly regulated industry, and the clinical research side, again, is at the center, because we could write an amazing protocol, but if there are no clinical research sites, then it's useless. I mean, really, right? What are we going to do with it? We're writing clinical trial protocols or products that are going to be tested on human beings. And the word testing, really, I know had a bad rep, but for a while, people are like, oh my God, they're testing drugs on people. No, people volunteer to do this. But here's the thing. Think about a situation where someone has stage 4, some type of cancer, stage 4, and they've exhausted all their means of treatment. And there's a clinical trial that they can enroll in with a drug that is promising. This has happened so many times that people's lives have been changed because of that. So think about clinical trials as more beneficial. And so we really have to let go of this idea that, people are coming in and just testing drugs and nobody knows what the side effects are and things like that. We have to make sure that, this is an industry that has grown. It's global now. I mean, it's only continuing to expand. And the safety aspect of it is only being implemented even more and more. I mean, there are new procedures and processes for actually ensuring that patients are safe. So we conduct clinical trials, so we make sure patients are safe. That's number one. And the data that we collect is integral. It has integrity. For that to occur, the patients have to be safe. So that's really important. So yeah, that is what I wanted to talk about, a clinical research site. They could be in any therapeutic area, right? Depends on what therapeutic area it is. And the organization that maintains oversight over clinical research sites, which ensures that all the processes and procedures are in place, that they're approved to actually conduct that clinical trial, is the Institutional Review Board and Independence Ethics Committee. So it's a great place. If you want to get into the industry, you maybe, like I said, you want to be a clinical research site, maybe you're an entrepreneur, you want to own one, you can set it up. And the reason why I talk about this is because there's really a need, especially in Africa right now, and in other countries that are non-Western and non-Eastern, like countries where there are non-white patients. There's a huge need for that right now because the world has changed so much. And so we're getting to the point where the concentration of power and resources is not only, in Western countries. Now, different types of people need access to different types of drugs, and they can afford it. So if you have a clinical research site and a pharmaceutical company can have access to patients that are non-white, that are diverse, they have different diverse backgrounds, it's only a benefit to your country. So I always say, clinical research sites are great places. It's a good place to understand the workings of this industry. And once you understand it, then you can, the sky's the limit. So yeah, I do advocate understanding what the processes are at the clinical research side and how it ties into what the clinical trial is really about. Okay, so thank you so much. That's my clinical trial facts for this Wednesday. I hope that some of you get this. If you have questions, just ping me at Tengu. I will respond to them. Or if there are any other topics that you would like to discuss, I mean, no question is off the table. If you are new to this industry and new to the group and you have questions about clinical trials, just ping me and I'll be more than glad to respond to you. Okay. I thank you all for listening and have a fantastic rest of the week. Bye-bye.